This is the PA Startup Podcast, episode number 14. This is the PA Startup Podcast, where we help pre-PA students, current PA students, and new grads start their careers as physician assistants. I'm your host, Chris Darst. We are glad you're here. Hey guys, welcome back to the PA Startup Podcast. This is episode number 14, which is our second Q&A in the history of the podcast. Hope you're having a wonderful day. I've got a couple good questions from some listeners out there. Again, you can send in your questions to questions@pastartup.co. And I'd be happy to offer a solution or some at least some insight on the podcast. If you have other questions, let's say maybe it's salary related or it's somewhat personal and you don't want it to be on the podcast, but you still want to ask, by all means, send me that too. Just say, hey, this isn't for the podcast, but could you answer this for me or help me understand this? So before we get started, don't forget we are sponsored by Audible. We have a free 30-day trial for the PA Startup Nation out there. So head over to pastartup.co/audible for a free 30-day trial. Again, you get a free book with that, and you can download that book. You can save it to your device, and even if you cancel your trial within the first 30 days, you don't pay a cent, but you get to keep that book. So if you use our link, we get a couple bucks as a thank you. It doesn't cost anything to you, and again, you can cancel in the first 30 days for no charge at all, but we'd appreciate that, and just want to share that with you guys. So we thank Audible for offering that to our listeners too. All right, Q&A number 2. So these are listener-submitted questions. This is going to be somewhat related for the new grads out there because we just had a big graduation season. Actually, there's more August grads from PA school than there are May or December. So May, December, and August are the three most common months where graduates are finishing up and taking their jobs. So I got a lot of job-related questions or salary-type questions and things. So that's what this is about. Well, we just finished episode 11 was about contracts. Episode 12 was about negotiation. This is kind of fitting with that theme. So, all right, let's jump into it. Question number 1, PA named Sally says, some of my classmates have worked out compensation using RVUs, but all the jobs I've interviewed for discuss salary. What's the difference between RVUs and plain salary? Well, Sally, this is a tricky question, mostly because I'm not an RVU specialist. Every job that I've had deals with plain salary, but RVUs are getting more and more common. An RVU is a relative value units, and Medicare uses it as a reimbursement figure. So one RVU, I think, is around $37. Okay, so it doesn't really mean anything until you apply it to like a routine follow-up visit in the office with no procedures and no tests is like 0.97 RVUs. So that's what Medicare says they'll pay for it. So then you go to, if you do a daily round on a ventricular assist device patient in the ICU, that's 5 RVUs, right? So that's what, 510, that's $150. So a lot of productivity, especially physician productivity, is measured in RVUs, where they'll have a minimum that they have to hit for the year, and then anything over that, they might get a percentage of the reimbursement. So it's just a way to track and reward productivity. An RVU is an RVU, though. So whether you're a PA or an MD, one RVU is one RVU. The reimbursement to the practice might change if it can't be billed under the Incident 2 criteria, which that's where like the physician is nearby within the suite, able to provide, clarification if it's needed. You can bill it 100%. But if the physician's off-site, maybe it's the weekend and you're doing something on your own, then you'd only get reimbursed 85%. But you still get a full RVU, just like the physician would for whatever it is, or 5 or 3 or whatever the RVU number is. You could still get that. So there's some really good resources out there for RVUs. I'm going to put a couple links in the show notes. That's pastartup.co/episode 14. And you can also, if you're listening on your device, at least on iTunes, I'm not sure about Stitcher Radio and the others, but if you're on iTunes, you can click on the show artwork and it'll load the show notes. So I didn't know that was there until recently. So yeah, click on the PA Startup logo and it'll flip around and you'll see the show notes. There'll be some links to a couple different places to learn about RVUs. But RVUs can be good. RVUs can be, especially if you're going to negotiate a salary, it does give you a very clear criteria on how your reimbursement is going to be structured. If you know how many RVUs you got last year, you can sometimes double check and see, okay, am I on track for this year? Or, how close am I to my goal? So I did a quick search, physicianassistantforum.com. I'm not an affiliate with them at all, but they have really good information on there. But one of the questions was similar to this, and somebody gave a really good breakdown of what this RVU calculation should be. So let me read it to you here. This person's contract was 3,800 RVUs. That was the minimum expectation. So this person would have to see 3,918 patients per year, which is an average of 327 a month. If you work 20 hours per month, 20 days. Oh man, 20 hours would be sweet. 20 days per month, that comes out to 16 patients a day. Okay, so that's what makes your base salary. Well, now, naturally, not everyone's going to be the 99213. So if you do higher E&M codes, if you do any CPT codes with the procedure, you splint a wrist, he says, due to I&D, you earn more RVUs. But so there's a lot of variability on what an average RVU total would be for the year. If your compensation is based on base RVUs, you have a minimum that you have to hit, but then once you hit that, you could be eligible for a bonus based on everything over that. That all comes down to, are you in an office that does a lot of procedures? Are you in an office that doesn't do anything? It's all routine follow-ups. The patients have been there for 100 years and no new patients and things like that. So there's a lot of variability that goes in with it. So, but Sally, I hope that explains it to you. There's base salary, which is like, here you're going to get $90,000 for the job. It's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, period. And if you see 2 patients, if you see 16 patients, the salary's the same. That's not a bad deal. It stinks on your busy days because you're not getting anything extra, but it's great on your light days. So it's a great, predictable salary. So there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're in a high volume practice, if you're a savvy person who understands coding, of course you don't want to upcharge people. You don't want to change codes based on RVUs. But if you know for a fact that your salary would be helped because of the volume of patients that you're seeing, then an RVU structure might be perfect for you. So there you go, Sally. I hope that helps you. Thanks for your email. If you shoot me, actually, I'll reply to your email. I'm going to get your address and send you a pastartup.co sticker you can slap on your laptop or anywhere else you want to put the sticker, including the trash can if you want. No, just kidding. So, all right. Seth says, I've interviewed for a few jobs, but none of them pay what I want. Isn't that the case, Seth? Always. But he says, how do I get the most money out of my first job? All right, Seth, I'm going to be blunt with you. All right. Don't go after money. That's kind of the wrong way to go about it. Don't say, how do I get the most money out of my first job? That's not what your first job is for. Okay. If you get a job based on money, it will never be enough. There will never be enough money to make up for crappy hours, difficult people, difficult supervising physicians, quality of locations. There's a lot of highly paid jobs out there, but that's because people work long hours. They take a ton of call. The location is junky, or the people are really difficult to work with. Don't put yourself in that position where you're only looking at dollars. So your first job is all about getting experience. So you need to learn, okay, I learned the books. Now how does it go into practice? What does it actually look like out in the real world? You need to prove that you're valuable. You're a quick learner. You're teachable. You're moldable, you have good bedside manner, you've got good procedural skills. You need to build up a knowledge base, because learning about diabetes from a book is different than treating someone with diabetes. All right. It's just how it is. So your first job isn't about money. It's about experience. Now, Seth, if you go out and crush your first job, regardless of your salary, and you show that you're an excellent learner, that you've got great bedside manner, you're trustworthy, you're a hard worker, guess what? The jobs will find you. okay? And therefore, so will the money, because they'll say, hey, I want that guy on my team. That guy's awesome. You're going to be in a much better place to negotiate a salary at that point. So first, find what you like. Find a specialty that you like, whether it's family practice, dermatology, cardiothoracic surgery, emergency medicine, psych, whatever it is, but be willing to accept a little bit lower salary. And as I always say, if you go back to my other podcasts on salary negotiations, if you look at the negotiation podcast, episode 13, or the contract negotiation, episode 12, I always say it's okay to take a lower salary, but negotiate an annual review after a year with specific salary adjustments and criteria. You know, a percentage of your base salary, a flat dollar amount that you'll go up and pay. But find something you like, crush it, knock it out of the park, and then go into that annual review and say, okay, I've shown that I can do this. Now let's talk money, okay? So I don't mean to rain on your parade. I know you've got student debt piling up. I know you've got, things on your plate. You're ready to make some money, but don't go into it saying, I want to make the most money as possible out of school. Look at Wall Street. You know, those people make a ton of money, but guess what? The burnout is through the roof because there's an exchange for that money. So don't chase the money, chase the job. Find what you like, show that you're solid and you're stellar, and go from there. I'm going to link in the show notes a really, really good link to Physician Assistant Forum, which I just talked about in the last question. But this guy, I don't know what his name is, EMED. I guess it's Emergency Medicine, Emergency Department, PA. But this guy has posted this awesome tip sheet for new grads. So I'm going to link it in there. I went through there and I was like, man, every one of these is spot on. It's solid. So I'll link those in the show notes. Check it out either on your podcast app or at the show notes, pastartup.co/episode 14. Okay, number 3, Katie says, hey, Chris, I'm about to accept a job, but my potential new employer didn't offer me a contract. Is this weird? Katie, it's a little weird if they didn't offer you a offer letter. So typically episode 11 talked about this, contracts and offer letters. So an offer letter is a summary of a conversation that took place. So it's your salary, your CME, your days off, just kind of the basics of something that you would have discussed. Now, if they didn't offer you that and they didn't offer you a contract, that is a little weird. So, you don't need a contract. An offer letter is fine, but they need to offer you something in writing. And that's because you don't want to get your first check and realize it's lower than you wanted. You don't want to find out you don't have health insurance. You don't want to find out you're paying for your own cell phone when you thought that was going to be offered. Whatever it might be, you need something in writing. So definitely say, hey, I'd like to consider your offer, but can you send me an offer letter detailing what we discussed? That's perfect. If you ask about a contract, they might say, oh, man, I forgot to send it. Or they might say, oh, we actually don't do contracts. And then there's your answer. But definitely still get an offer letter. It's not nearly as binding as a contract, but it is something written that you can rely on down the road should you need it. It gives you some security, which is good. One thing to look for is a non-compete clause. I tell everybody that. Make sure you read the fine print. And it's not usually in an offer letter, but sometimes it can be. More often it's in a contract. But if they say, hey, the non-compete clause can be reasonable. We might say you can't work, if you're going to a cardiology job, they might say you can't work in cardiology within 50 miles of us for a year after you quit. And that's reasonable. That doesn't mean you can't work emergency medicine or inpatient medicine or dermatology or whatever. It just means you can't work in that specialty in that same town. Now, if the non-compete clause is really, really restrictive, that's you can't work as a physician assistant within 150 miles for 5 years, there's a problem there. So definitely look for that. All right. So just a little heads up about non-compete clauses. They should be reasonable. They shouldn't be really, really restrictive though. It's basically to prevent you from going to the competitor, sharing insider secrets and stuff like that, which I know you won't do because, hopefully PAs all have integrity and aren't going to do that. But there you go. All right. So Brian says, should I go to residency? Brian, you're a man of few words, but I get it. What else can you add to that? Should I go to residency? That's a common question that I get asked. A lot of people have heard about them or think that it could help them with jobs. So here's a couple things. Pros for residencies. So a residency, for those of you that don't know, if you're a pre-PA student, doctors go to, med school. They get an MD or a DO and it's usually 4 years, and then they'll go into residency, whether it's family medicine, cardiology. I guess you go to internal medicine first and then cardiology, but there's all these residencies and fellowships, and that's to provide specific training, whether it's 3 years for family practice or neurosurgery or cardiothoracic. They're all quite long. So it's just additional training. Now, PAs also have that, and there's quite a few out there. I actually don't know. I've got a couple links I'll put in the show notes that'll talk about the number of residencies out there and the different ones. It's typically like emergency medicine, orthopedics, surgical specialties like general surgery, vascular surgery, cardiothoracic surgery. A lot of times it's things that require, surgical skills or some sort of emergency medicine is like the mindset where you're family practice trained as a PA, but ER medicine is very different, where it's some of it's family practice, but a lot of it is urgent, pressing, life-threatening stuff. And so a residency is a great way to get some additional training. A lot of jobs, if they're competitive, will recognize, your residency as a leg up on the competition. And really, even if your job won't look at it or pay you anymore or care that you even went, it might open your eyes to working at the top of your license. And that's kind of a buzzword or a catchphrase within the healthcare community, where we want to work at the top of our license. We want to make sure that what we're doing is at the best use of our skills as possible. So if you're a nurse, right, and you spend all your time scanning stuff into the computer, well, that doesn't require a nursing degree to do. So why are you doing that? If you're a PA, are you running to get coffee for people? No, that doesn't require a PA to do. You need to be out there prescribing medications and diagnosing and treating illnesses. And, if you're a surgeon, you shouldn't be, collating documents that come off of the fax machine for a new patient. That's not the best use of your education and your training. So if you go to a residency, you might find out oh man, I can put chest tubes in. I can, perform these procedures X, Y, and Z. And so when you go to a job, you might say, oh yeah, that's totally in my wheelhouse. I can handle that. Whereas if you didn't go to the residency, you might start your job, let's say in general surgery, and they only let you close skin and you hold a camera or a retractor and you never do anything other than that. But in the residency, they've got you in there. You're suturing, you're tying knots, you're doing all kinds of stuff. You might find, wow, I can do a lot more than I realized I could do. So it opens your eyes to that working at the top of your license. So the cons to a residency, Brian, would be potential employers might look at you as being pigeonholed in that area. So let's say you do a surgical residency and then you apply for an internal medicine job. And they say, well, we don't do a lot of procedures here. It's mostly, inpatient internal medicine. You're kind of qualified in a different area. So that actually might be a detractor from a future job. Now, if I'm going to work surgery forever, then it won't be a big deal. But it might be something where it would at least raise question. I don't know that it would keep you from a job, but it would if there's two, if you're competing for something right alongside somebody, they might say, well, you actually did this extra training in this unrelated area, so therefore we're going to go with the other person. So there's no additional legal autonomy, that's given to people that go to a residency. So, and that's true with a master's degree versus a doctorate, which is, up and coming in the PA world to get a clinical doctorate. So there's no additional responsibility that can come from that from a legal standpoint. However, PAs do have a wide berth. They have a wide range of things that they can do. So if my supervising physician says that I can do the sternotomy, guess what? I can do the sternotomy. If they say, you need to sew this graft to the heart because I don't have the right angle on it, legally I can do that. But that's not because of a residency or a doctorate or a master's degree. It's because I'm a physician assistant and the state law says that, I can do anything that the surgeon tells me to do. So there's no additional benefits from from going to a residency. And then also a lot of people say it's very similar to the training you'd get on the job. So if you did a year of general surgery residency, you might rotate through cardiothoracic and vascular and neuro and stuff like that. But if you just got a job in general surgery, you'd be a year down the road with the same, you've done appies and gallbladders and lesion removals and lipoma removals and breast biopsies and all kinds of things that you will have already done it on the job. So a lot of people say, don't worry about a residency. You'll get that, from the get-go. So I would say it comes down to where you want to work, Brian. Honestly, if you work in a part of the country that likes residencies, that gives favor to residency trained PAs, then yeah, I think it's a good deal. But if you're not, it's not really going to help you, I don't think, down the road to get a job or to be better at a job or to get higher compensation for a job, because honestly, you'll get the same experience by working in that specialty. So I would just get right to it. But, use your judgment. I'm not the end all be all. That's just my opinion. So I'm going to put a couple links to, so there's postgraduate PA programs, and then Steven from PA Life. It's a great website and blog. He's going to be an upcoming guest on the show as well. He's got a link. He's got a site called paschoolfinder.com. And that actually also has postgraduate PA residencies on there too. So I will link to that map. It's really cool. You can look by any state. You can narrow down your where you want to go, the specialty, the place it's going to be, stuff like that. So Steven at PA Life has that on his website, and I will definitely link to that in the show notes. And we look forward to talking to him too. So I've got one more question that was sent to me via email, and I want to make sure that I get this in this Q&A episode. This is from Robens, R-O-B-E-N-S, and my website's being funny, so I don't have a email back to you, Robens. But thanks for the question. The question was, hey, Chris, love the podcast. Thank you. I'm starting PA school in a couple days. I'd love if you could provide me some useful nuggets on pitfalls to avoid during school and some advice on how not just to survive, but to flourish the next 2 years. That is an awesome question, and it is timely. We've been talking about graduation, but we also have a whole host of people who are getting ready to go to school. So here's my answer to this. I've got three main themes that I think people should follow as they start school. Number one, you've been studying a certain way pretty much since kindergarten all the way through college, where you study to learn the information for the test. When you start PA school, you cannot just study for the test. I was guilty of doing this in undergrad and then PA school, and it worked okay in undergrad. Honestly, I got good grades, but not so much in PA school. It's a professional training program that's teaching you practical information that you're going to use as a PA. So if you only study the most common stuff, or you memorize lists, or make little acronyms in your mind, which that's fine to help remember it, but it's not going to help you really nail down and understand the information. And so when you get to rotations, you're not going to be able to put the pieces together like you need to. If you just studied for the most commons on the test, when you get out into clinical practice, you're going to have a lot more work cut out for you. So don't study for the test, study to understand the information. So a lot of people study until they know the material and they can identify the correct answer on a test, but other people are going to study until they can explain it to a non-medical person. Seek to be the latter of the two. All right. Number two, plan ahead. Don't cram the night before the test because you were busy making a presentation the whole week prior. Make a master calendar and put your tests on that calendar, and try to start studying days before those tests. A little studying every day goes a long way rather than cramming the night before. You're going to have projects due. You're going to have different things going on. You're going to have multiple tests to study for. So you have to plan ahead and make sure that you are giving everything the time that it needs so that you understand it. If you end up cramming, then you fall into number one, which is just studying to pass the test rather than understanding the information. So that was number two. Number three, don't forget to have a life in PA school. Yeah, PA school is harder than college because information is coming faster and in a higher volume than it ever has, but it's also way more practical. So eventually, once you kind of get up to speed, it's not as daunting because what you're learning, is interesting. Not, you're not just learning things to learn and pass a class. You're actually learning things that you're going to use. A lot of people get overwhelmed by the volume of information, so they keep at it and they keep working, and they never take time away. So don't be afraid to take some dedicated time away to close your books and enjoy life. Enjoy your family, enjoy your friends, go out on the weekend. weekends, see a movie, whatever you want to do. You'll actually retain more information if your life has a little balance to it. So as much as you want to study and get ahead and all kinds of things, don't be afraid to walk away once in a while and just enjoy some time. So Robins, I hope this helps. I hope that's your name, Robins, Robens. Very cool name, by the way. I hope this helps. I hope this helps you kind of set the tone for your PA school career. And shoot me another email with your email back. I'd love to talk with you more. And again, if anybody else has questions, questions at pastartup.co, and we can feature them here on the podcast. All right, gang, that is question and answer number 2. Show notes for this are going to be pastartup.co/episode 14. And we'll catch up with you in episode 15. Thanks so much for listening. Leave us a rating and review if you would. Head over to iTunes, give us a 5-star review, drop a couple words if you'd like. Definitely subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any new episodes. And check us out on Twitter too, pastartup.co, and dot is DOT, not a period, but a DOT co, all spelled out. And as we've discussed before, we have our Audible trial, our free 30-day Audible trial at pastartup.co/audible. Hang in there, guys. Keep grinding away. And thanks so much for listening. And now we have 2 dogs. I can't do it. I never wanted to be a guy with 2 dogs, and now I get to answer the door with these 2 little lap dogs tucked under my arms. I'll be right back.